I'm going to talk about the case study exam. And as I do so, I hope that this helps you both prepare for the case study exam and also think about where you ran into problems. So you could watch this at either place in the course of our class. So here's one possible example. It's perhaps a little bit simpler than some that you're going to see this semester. So Elsie is terrified of grasshoppers and has been since last summer when there was a local plague of grasshoppers lasting almost a week. This summer, she refused to leave her house during grasshopper season, despite her parents' attempts to coax her out. So what do you think is happening? And one of the things I might do is stop the video right now and just think about this. So, assuming that you've stopped and thought already, let's work our way through the kinds of questions that you're going to get for this part of the exam. First, I'm going to ask you about symptoms. And you might have noticed that she is displaying an intense, disproportionate fear to grasshoppers. We can understand some fear, but hers seems to be really unusual. And it's also causing her some problems that, including, that she's refusing to leave the house. Finally, these problems have lasted for a long period of time, at least 1 year. And so one of the things I'm going to ask or going to look for in your response to this question is that there is a time, refers to the time in some sort of way. That is almost always an essential part of a case study. So often students run into problems with this part. And let me talk a little bit about why I'm asking about strengths. I think, first of all, one of the things that you want to be thinking about and get used to is thinking person first. So people are not just their weaknesses, but they also have strengths. And part of the reason that you want to do this is you want to be able to work more effectively with people. And it's hard to work effectively with people if you're only thinking about their weaknesses. These are short cases, and so there aren't, you're going to have to be thinking about these things. But certainly one thing that you might be thinking about is that she has a relationship with her parents, both of whom seem to be concerned, that she do well. Probably, almost certainly there are lots and lots of other strengths, but that's what we see in this case. So think about some of the diagnoses that you might be thinking about for her. One possibility is a phobia, a simple phobia. A second might be PTSD. A third might be generalized anxiety disorder. And a fourth might be that this is just a normal kind of reaction, and so it's no problem. So what you might then do is go back and look at your diagnoses. So we're going to start here with generalized anxiety disorder. And while there are some pieces of this that look similar to what we've been talking about, there's a lot of anxiety that she's having. It doesn't seem to be worry. It doesn't seem to be about a number of events, only grasshoppers. There's not a lot of description about restlessness and fatigue and mind going blank. And so perhaps, we would want to be asking about those things. For D, there is clearly clinically significant distress or impairment. She's not willing to leave the house, and there's so much distress that it's causing her a variety of different problems. We want to know whether it's related to some sort of general medical condition. We don't have that information, and not better explained by another mental disorder. I'm not going to include all the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder because it's a pretty long diagnosis. I think while there are some things that sort of sound like PTSD, I'm not sure that she's been exposed to a trauma. I am not going to be suggesting that her exposure to grasshoppers last year was a trauma. Seems to be some intrusion symptoms and a lot of avoidance, more than 1 month, a lot of significant distress. But if we're looking at the specific details, it doesn't really seem to fit the diagnosis, certainly not in terms of the number of symptoms. Another option would be a specific phobia. So here we have a marked fear or anxiety about a specific object or situation, grasshoppers. Immediate fear or anxiety, that sounds reasonable. Actively avoided, definitely. Out of proportion to actual danger, definitely. Lasting, more than 6 months, typically. We know that it was more than a year, causing avoidance and anxiety, and not better explained by anything else. So again, you might want to stop and think about which one seems to be the best explanation. In your before we go on, let's also, pay attention to the fact that maybe there isn't even a problem. It might be that this is the way all 8-year-olds are. I'm not buying that. It seems to be much more disproportionate. And if you were to say it's not a problem, I'd probably go, no points here. Okay? So, my diagnosis, based on this information, and we might want to collect more, but based on the information we have, I would go with a simple phobia. And this is all I'm looking for. You don't have to, describe things in great depth. Just be clear and, in your description throughout. And have a good day.